Hello and welcome back to the next One Piece review and discussion. We are here with the leaks for the new chapter releasing on Sunday, and my goodness, Oda is certainly rounding off 2024 with such a big reveal. I didn't think he was ready to play some of these hands so soon, but the man knows what he's doing, so I'm just along for the ride at this point. But I am ready to get stuck into this because we got to discuss a few things. So, without further ado, chapter 1134, the Owl Library. So, the building that we had saw in the previous chapter, we're going to get a bit more information about it. So, looking forward to that. But nevertheless, last we had left off, we had the beautiful 22 years in the waiting reunion of Robin and Saul. And it was such a beautiful moment between the two of them. Oda had really just nailed it, down to absolutely like mimicking panel for panel their first meeting and then the meeting again. Like, that's what Saul wanted to reciprocate because he didn't know how he wanted to see Robin after all this time. But it was so lovely, and all the Straw Hats got to be a part of it. They were all ready for this feast, and Robin had decided she wanted to see Saul first before, the jubilations and the feasts begin. So I think it was done so well. And that is where we pick back up from. So we have Luffy greeting Saul and saying, old man Saul, you looked after one of my young'uns, I am greatly in your debt. You have my gratitude. Allow me to introduce myself. And everyone is kind of stood behind going, who taught Luffy to speak like that? The translations and what people have been talking about online is he's talking like a mafia boss, like he's looking after one of his own. So they're all kind of making jokes, and as he goes to say his name and stuff, Robin cuts him off and goes, "Oh yeah, this is Luffy. Say hi." It's like, oh, I know Luffy. He's already quite famous. I'm so glad you finally found them, Robin. And she says, she's like, just like you said, Saul. I finally found them, the precious friends that would protect even someone like me. And we get the shot again of all the Straw Hats in tears, other than Luffy, Zoro, and Jinbei are stoically facing the other way, facing Saul and Robin. And the rest of them were just like, oh, of course we're going to protect you, Robin. We'll protect you forever. Really loving this emotional moment. And we can see Saul is explaining we see Gerd, there is another giant, and then the Straw Hats on this beach. And he says, look, I just want to thank you all for coming to Elbaph, even to begin with, because, I'd spent so long, planning out and practicing this scenario of when I was going to meet Robin again, that, my assistant, Ange, I wanted to do it right, but clearly I apologise for startling you all, but I'm so glad to meet you all, Robin's friends. And then he looks at Luffy and he's like, I was once a marine soldier, so I know what the full strength of an emperor entails. And he's like, I sincerely thank you for protecting Robin, and please, can you continue to do so? And Luffy's laughing away, you just leave it to us, we've got this. And then Lilith jumps up, starts rocket boot jumping up, and it's like, yo, Saul, long time no see, fella, how's it going? And he's like, who are you again? Sorry, what? Are you flying? Who's this? And Lilith is like, oh, it's me, it's Vegapunk. And he's like, huh? Hold up, when did Vegapunk become a woman? And we can see Gerd and Jinbei are actually loading or unloading a like metal crate, a box with a labelled Vega on it, and they're unloading it, and Gert's like taking it off Jinbei, like putting it down, and Jinbei's like, as you know, as per Vegapunk's orders, you know, we carried this out, we've brought it off of Egghead, you know, I wonder what is actually inside of it. And Lilith's like, you silly, it's me. And they're like, hold up. And Luffy's the one to be like, a Vegapunk clone. And Lilith's like, yes, come on, it's a completed replica model with just different specs from us satellites. You know, come on, do you think like the government would have let me have got away from just like travelling away from, you know, Egghead for months on end? No, this was the Vegapunk, you know, that came 20 years ago to Elbaph, you know, so he's the younger version of me that was able to kind of like dip in and out of Egghead. So quite clever actually. So it meant that, you know, Vegapunk obviously being monitored the whole time, he created other replicas of himself, not the satellites, so not his consciousness, just replicas to like go and then visit islands, visit Elbaph, you know, when the books from O'Hara were being ferried here, and probably was maybe the one that went to O'Hara as well. So he was like, look, like the government would have been suspicious if I just left, so that's why I've made these replicas. So Lilith is like, right, I am going to need to put together some like live culture solution now to like really kickstart this thing going. So I don't have the apparatus right now, but I'm gonna plan on living here and building a new lab. This is the place to do it, because we already saw Lilith was fascinated with like how everything was interacted on this island. You know, the rainbows, you know, the tree itself, the clouds. She was like, all forms of like egghead technology already sort of naturally exists on this island to begin with. So it's the perfect place to start a new lab. And Bonnie then, you know, shouts out, oh, does that mean then if I wait here long enough, you're going to get my dad, you know, back healthy again? Will he be well again? And she's like, of course, Bonnie. So we're already getting kind of confirmation here that when the Straw Hats in 2-3 years time eventually part from Egghead with resolving whatever's about to happen, because some serious things are about to happen, Bonnie and Lilith will remain here with the giants as long as everything's still standing at the end. We'll see. But nevertheless, that's their plan anyway. Bonnie wants to stay with Kuma and Lilith, you know, when Vegapunk comes back. So Saw's like, oh yeah, you know, you're welcome to stay, but I didn't plan on this delightful reunion because I didn't recognise you. So I'm sorry. And Lilith's like, oh no, don't worry about it. You know, I just didn't really explain it well, but you know, maybe we've got some more catching up to do. And we see Ange, the assistant, you know, very how would I put it? Like stereotypical librarian look that Oda, I think, is kind of going for this woman. And she's like, you know, doctor, you know, happy you've done your play now, so are the kids alright to go and play again? And he's like, oh yeah, sorry kids, you know, thanks for cooperating, you go right on ahead. And the kids, giant kids, start playing. And Ange explains, you know, in truth, like this spring is like the playground for the kids, so I'd asked them to be quiet so Saul could do his like little play, but you know, they were just getting a bit too excited now. But she introduces herself for, you know, to the Straw Hat and says she is an assistant of Dr. Saul's here, you know. So she is actually going to take the Straw Hat on a tour of the school. She's like, you know, I want to show you what we've got to offer. You know, the best library and the best school in Elbaph is right here. And, you know, I'll guide you through it. But already Luffy and Usopp have bolted off, you know, too excited. They can't quite grasp this place still just yet. And Usopp is still talking about, you know, the education now of the warriors of Elbaph. Like, he wants to witness what it's like So they rush off the beach, and we get a lovely shot of this like giant treehouse school, like beautiful. And Ange says, this is the school of the walrus, not to be confused with any of the Witcher schools. This is specifically a school for giant kids. So a school of the walrus, where, kids attend. It was opened 20 years ago by Saul himself, and, it was actually under the orders of the old King Harold. And Saul, says, if it's okay, I actually want to show Robin the library, if you want to show, the rest of them. And Chopper's like, whoa, hold up, I want to go to this library. They might have some massive books here. It's a giant library. I definitely want to go. So Robin, Saul, Chopper, I think Lilith ends up going as well, and the remaining Straw Hats all go to the school, feeling a bit nostalgic of their time. So they all follow Luffy and the others, and we see the kids chasing after Luffy, a game of catch, and then the girls who were there oh, stop chasing those little humans around, you're being bullies. And Zoro's I could just cut them down, and they're like, whoa, dude, they're kids, okay, just because they're giants. And they're saying these weak humans, it's unfair to pick on them. And Zoro's whoa, these brats are really starting to piss me off now, hang on. And Usopp calms them all down and is right, okay, doesn't matter, look, you can call us puny humans because obviously one day you're going to set off and you're going to fight many ruffians out there, you're going to set sail and be great Vikings and giants. And they all go, no, we're not. Fighting's dangerous. Why would we want to do that? We're not in the army reserves at all. What are you talking about? Why are you being so rude? And we hear a voice from just beneath Usopp and Luffy, because they're stood there on the ground while the giants are giant kids are speaking to them. And the voice is that's not the trend here anymore, going out to fight. And Zoro's wait, there's an adult voice? Who was that? And it's the kid's we should have told you actually, but you better move because you're actually going to get scolded for standing where you are. And we zoom up and we see the quintessential giant Viking warrior shield maiden. A woman strewn out on the ground, very stereotypical. And she is Ripley, who is the biology teacher at this school. I see what Oda's going for. And she, to me, is what I would assume Lagertha from Vikings would look like in the One Piece giant Elbaph world. She is this Viking shield maiden. She looks dead relaxed, and she's oh, you stood on Ripley's body, and Luffy starts bouncing on her chest. So that's something. Fair play, Oda. And they're talking, it's oh, no, it's fine, don't worry, they're not actually that heavy anyway, But, you must be shocked, it's been 100 years since the warriors of Elbaph actually were going out wild, There was violence, plunder, war, but it's just not that era anymore. The kids nowadays, we're kind of teaching them to be better, And she obviously starts talking. It's oh, so you must be the Straw Hats. I've heard a lot about you. Sorry if our brats are causing such a ruckus. And they're wow, this teacher really is harsh. But she holds up Luffy and Usopp in her hand and it's the wise ruler King Harold, a very famous Viking king that has been adapted many times. He actually wanted this nation to be better. He wanted us to trade and not fight. He wanted to form relations instead of just raiding, which kind of did happen in history. So he's there was, however, the butting of heads with the elders, because Harold came in, wanted this change, but the elders stuck to traditions. and like they're kind of inquiring about this, and Ange is the one to explain, he was the great king who, reformed this country, made it what it was, but his own son brought about his demise, and he was halfway to like achieving his dream, but the country actually didn't allow his son to take the throne. So right now Elbaph has no king. So how it's governed is more interesting now. So is it probably just these elders that Ripley's talking about that are like sort of forming a council, or they just kind of internally fight each other? It seems to be a bit like all over the place. But anyway, as of this point, the history class is over and they are carrying on through the rest of the school, but not before Ripley kind of pulls Luffy closer and it's like, oh, Captain, where's that white form of yours? I was so looking forward to seeing it. And Luffy's like, oh, that my freedom form? Yeah. And she explains, according to Elbaph myth, there was a warrior who had the same form that you take. I'm just fluttering with excitement, because she is one of those last generation of warriors. So 100% being set up as a shield maiden, so seeing her fight is going to be incredible. But she seems, excited to see what Luffy's Gear 5 form actually takes at, like, when he shows it off. So I'm sure all the giants will be excited. But we don't get any further conversation. We actually jump over to Saul and the others, who the school's like on the kind of right hand side of the beach, whereas we saw that our library more on the left side up in a tree. And they're walking up staircases, and Saul explains, I was concerned about all the literature that was left at O'Hara. All the scholars, they protected it with their life. So I made sure with Hyruden's help that we would go back, we would get every book we could, and I wanted to make sure that their will, the knowledge survived. And opens the door, and as Robin begins to walk, and he's like, oh, Robin, just be careful though. And before Robin can react, really, the book in her hand that she's been carrying starts to just enlarge and gigantifies into a massive book on the floor. And Saul starts having to say, oh, was that a bit of a surprise? Yeah, sorry, just to explain, every book that we've got here was once a small book and has since been gigantified in this place. So, hold up. They have meaned in this specific space an enchantment of some form that allows a object, a book, to just magically gigantify. Hello? Are we going to have like boats, like the Sunny, just get this sort of transformation at some point? Like they just bring the Sunny in and the Sunny just goes, just becomes a massive Viking giant ship? Like, how is this not used in other areas? But Saul is like looking around and is like, we're taking in the sort of breadth of this giant library. The walls are stacked, and he's like, every book in here has been enlarged because every book in here was the books from O'Hara 22 years ago. I searched carefully and I didn't miss a single one. This is the mysterious Library of Owls. So whether this is something that they control or it's just something that happens specifically with this building, we do see a giant owl like hanging in the branches. Something the owl's doing, we don't yet know, but everything is home now, is what he's saying. Like, I've brought everything home, they're safe, and I wanted to show you, Robin. And Robin flashes back to like Clover, talking like, this is the best library in the world, do you like reading books? And Saul starts crying again, like, to think that this is the day where I could finally show you it all. And like Robin's just like overcome with joy at this point. But we leave the Straw Hats for the time being because we've got other individuals to see. So we go back down to the underworld where Loki is talking to someone, but this person isn't there, like, physically. And it turns out that whether Luffy just missed it the first time or Loki kind of like stashed it away and brings it back out at certain times, but he's actually talking to someone on a snow transponder snail. So a cold resistant transponder snail, which is kind of cool. And is in kind of like a familiar conversation. Like, he's had several conversations with this person, and it's like, oh, like, you must be pretty bored, and this person's like, am I bothering you at all? And he's like, no, it's nice to have some company, keep myself occupied, because I've got all this time on my hands, I can't really do anything. But he says that that terrifying experience you went through, you must have been really traumatized. And the voice on the other end is like, even if I think about it, I still can't stop shaking. And Loki's like, oh man, I'm frustrated too. Even though I've never met you or seen you before in person, this is just a strange twist of fate. You and I have become long-time friends. And if I had been there in your place, I would have leveled the entire area and brought about ruin and a massacre. So already we've got Loki and this individual, who we are about to find out is called Moser, have been talking now periodically. So somehow this snail has appeared, or by some twist of fate ended up by Loki, where he could now just converse with someone. But not only that, this is an individual who has gone through an event recently in the story that is traumatic enough that Loki's like, I would have sorted it out, I would have set things straight. So whether this is going to be something that Moses had like a traumatic event because of the world government, or did the Straw Hats do something? They've been pretty busy. There's a lot kind of happened, whether it's Whole Cake, Wano, Egghead, this person who could have been on just one of those islands, minding their own business, got caught up in just what was happening. A seemingly background character who now has a vendetta against someone. So they're making some sort of friendship with Loki, which is going to probably be a bad thing. But Moses obviously like, I don't wish for them to be hurt, I don't wish for that. And that's when Loki says, like, Moser, you're being naive now. Okay, you need to listen. If you let somebody escape, if you let this fool escape once, they will just come back for revenge unless you render them beyond recovery. And Moser starts going like, oh, you're right, thank you. I recently thought, your violent words would just kind of affront, and I'm now starting to see the kindness showing through. And Loki gets so annoyed. He's like, that's so offensive, don't even utter such words, they disgust me. Don't get so cocky. And Moser, we don't know if Moser's a male or a female, or who it even is, or where they're from, but they've gone through a traumatic experience and have since formed a friendly relationship with Loki. And Loki's like seething, and he's like, just shut up. When I get freed from these chains, you better remember. So I think there's definitely something here that's starting to form. Loki's definitely getting freed. Whether we're going to find out who Moser is, what island they've had trouble, it could be Lucia. They were a survivor from Lucia. So Loki now has got this huge vendetta against the world government anyway, so this just adds fuel to the fire. But the chapter doesn't end there. the final double page of this chapter is back in the Western Village. The festivities are kind of bubbling. Everyone's like, oh, can we start drinking? When are we going to start the feast? And everyone's like, well, just hold up. Straw hats are on the way type thing. And we see a black lightning bolt strike the castle up on like the ridge that we saw in the big spread of this village. A black lightning bolt, very similar to what we saw during Egghead. And not only that, do we see a summoning circle form in the throne room of the palace, this castle, and two cloaked figures appear, kneeling at first and begin to stand up. And we just see two faces. We see the face of a woman with like her mouth covered in like bandages, and we just see one eye, and we see Shanks. But is it Shanks? Because the framing and image of this individual looks exactly like the person we saw way back in chapter 907. The Shanks we thought was interacting with the Gorosei. I want to talk about that specific pirate. It's been long running rumours now that Shanks is a twin, or there's a clone, or there's something that has two Shankses in some way. And this individual has arrived at Elbaph. And the text we get is that the intruders have appeared. So they're not friendly. We can get that out the way. We know they're here for some nefarious purpose. And if it's what I might think, if it is Shanks' brother or twin or clone or whatever, these people have to be holy knights. Because the summoning circle is exactly like when the 5 elders got summoned. There's no number written in, so there was numbers for like signifying each of the members. Like there was the number 5 for St. J. Garcia when he got summoned. This is just the summoning circle, the star, and then that like immediate black lightning blast, and the figures appear. What chaos are these people going to cause? And we know that Luffy is definitely going to have an interaction with this individual that looks like Shanks. Because it's this profile side of the face where we don't see the scars. So obviously when we finally see a full face reveal, he won't have any scar. So Luffy's like, hold up, you're not Shanks. Who the hell are you? But that's where the chapter ends, which is so annoying. But we do have a 2-week break. Now, it is 2 weeks because of obviously Christmas and the holiday, but I think we will get spoilers next week for the following chapter before we then kind of round out 2024 and move into 2025. But my goodness, what Oda is setting up is kind of going to be pretty big. I mean, the new characters, we've got the Vikings introduced, we've got now an individual talking with Loki, so we've got this whole sort of friendship relationship being built up, and obviously now the even greater mystery of who the hell is that person. It'll be fun. It can't be Shanks, but it'd be funny. But it's definitely someone with a connection to him because they're almost identical. So let me know what you think, because there's certainly a lot of waiting before we find out. But thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Let me know what you thought of this chapter. I will see you guys next time. Bye.